For 40 years, scientists debated the source of an unseen energy that powered an entire revolution. Turns out it was a walking fuel tank, bigger than 3 school buses, and wrapped in blubber 2 feet thick. Seriously, 2 feet of insulation, more than your winter coat, your house, and your grandma's Sunday roast combined. Evolution really delivered on creating an epic energy store here, crafting a beast whose heart alone weighs 1,800 pounds. That's heavier than a smart car. From the early 1700s, this living resource ignited a technological arms race, marking the beginning of humanity's darkest chapter, industrial whaling. This wasn't just fat. It was high-grade, slow-burning oil, the most energy-dense substance humanity had ever discovered. Even its tongue was a resource, weighing 4 tons, more than a fully grown elephant, and packed with precious oil. The hunt for this liquid fuel pushed whaling fleets into the treacherous waters of the South Atlantic, a new, deadly frontier. For centuries, these leviathans were too fast and powerful for sail-powered ships and hand-thrown harpoons. They were untouchable, aquatic ghosts. Their calls reached 188 decibels, a concussive force louder than a jet engine. Yet on land, the industrial engine was waking up, demanding lubricant for its gears and light for its 24-hour factories. Nature had accidentally created the perfect, self-delivering oil tanker, and humanity, armed with a very sharp stick, was taking furious notes. The game changed dramatically in the 1860s. What would the world even look like without this creature? Consider this. A blue whale, weighing as much as 30 elephants, wasn't just the largest animal ever. It was a walking, swimming oil refinery, packing nearly 200 tons of pure energy. Sven Foyn's 1864 grenade harpoon changed everything, turning a dangerous chase into systematic slaughter. Within a few decades, over 90% of these giants were gone, their bodies the literal fuel for the Industrial Revolution. A single whale could give you over 3,000 gallons of oil, enough to light entire cities and power factories, lighting up a century of progress with their own blubber. Then came the floating factory ships by the early 20th century, turning the oceans into industrial abattoirs, capable of stripping a 100-ton whale to its skeleton in less than 30 minutes. That efficiency was frankly horrifying. This living engine, with a heart the size of a small car, was the primary lubricant for a world going into overdrive. And get this, its tongue alone weighed 4 tons, about the same as a full-grown female African elephant. To maintain such a colossal form, it ate up to 4 tons of krill daily, hunting those swarms in the frigid Southern Ocean. Evolution spent 50 million years perfecting this serene creature, and it unintentionally created the ultimate energy source. Its blubber was a miracle of high-energy conversion, turning tiny crustaceans into potent fuel. The whale's metabolism was an absolute masterclass. This liquid giant kept the world running until petroleum offered a new black gold, making the whale hunt almost obsolete, practically overnight. Imagine a foot-thick layer of pure, industrial-grade gold, wrapped in blubber that held the key to an industrial revolution. This wasn't just fat, it was biological engineering, a complex matrix of tissue and collagen fibers, making it incredibly tough. Some scientists estimate its thermal efficiency is over 10 times greater than today's best insulating foams. That blubber, sometimes a full foot thick, kept the whale's core stable even in polar seas. It also made the colossal animal neutrally buoyant, turning a 200-ton creature into a weightless dancer in the deep. That massive energy reserve fueled epic migrations of over 10,000 miles, with a single large whale's blubber holding up to 1 billion calories. That's enough to power about 400 homes for a day. Think of your body fat not as a health metric, but as the strategic petroleum reserve for a small nation. At the microscopic level, each fat cell was a vessel holding a droplet of the purest organic lamp oil. The rendering process? Brutal alchemy. Apply heat, and this biological miracle separated into oil, protein, and waste. In the Antarctic alone, between 1904 and 1978, whalers extracted over 46 million barrels of oil. The blue whale wasn't hunted like an animal. It was mined like a fossil fuel that happened to be alive. One large blue whale could yield up to 120 barrels of oil, a swimming liquid gold mine. This oil, unlike the rancid fats from land creatures, resisted spoilage for far longer, a crucial advantage for global trade. A single whale's output could keep London's streetlights burning for nearly 3 months, illuminating early industrial progress. Nature had ideas. "40% of Nantucket whalers never came home. For centuries, hunting leviathans was a perilous gig, limited by sail, oar, and sheer human strength. Imagine catching a submarine with a fishing rod from a rowboat. That was the daily grind off New England. A 7-person crew in a single whaleboat might snag 1 big whale per month, even in peak season. Their basic iron harpoon was just an anchor, not a killer. When a strike landed, the real chaos began, a Nantucket sleigh ride, where the whale dragged the boat at breakneck speeds. These chases could hit 23 miles per hour, faster than Usain Bolt. But the massive blue whale could easily hit 20-mile-per-hour bursts, making it too fast and too powerful for these hunters. One flick of its tail could splinter a 28-foot oak whaleboat, tossing its crew overboard. By 1846, New Bedford, Massachusetts was the richest city per capita on Earth, all built on whale products. A single sperm whale yielded over $3, zeroed in oil, 10 times a person's annual salary. On deck, blubber was rendered in massive trypots, iron cauldrons boiling around the clock. The stench of burning blubber was so potent, ships smelled a whaling vessel from 20 miles away. This brutal, profitable industry, however, couldn't satisfy the insatiable hunger of the coming industrial age. To light just one city like Manchester for a year, you'd need the entire New Bedford fleet's catch for a decade. $2.5 million gallons of lubricant oil. That's what British factories alone were guzzling by 1850, enough to fill 38 Olympic swimming pools annually. As the 18th century gave way to the 19th, the quiet hum of handcraft was replaced by the clatter and roar of new machines. Thousands of factories sprang up, filled with iron gears and pistons that screamed for lubrication to prevent catastrophic failure. But the old lubricants, tallows, and vegetable oils just couldn't hack it. They broke down under the extreme pressures and temperatures, causing machinery to seize up. A single Lancashire textile mill, with its 50,000 spindles whirring away, demanded over 100 gallons of high-grade lubricant oil every week. That's enough to fill your bathtub 50 times weekly. Then whale oil entered the picture. Chemically, it was perfect, stable at high temperatures, low freezing point, and possessed incredible film strength under pressure. Between 1820 and 1860, demand for these industrial lubricants exploded, mirroring the exponential growth of railways and factories. The world's new economic engine was starving, and old-school rowboat whaling was a pathetic, inadequate response to this industrial hunger. Chemists were baffled by whale oil's stability. It seemed less like an animal product and more like a purpose-built industrial fluid. How does something from the deep ocean do that? The Industrial Revolution's thirst was biblical. Those iron arteries of this new world, thousands of miles of railway track, would have seized solid without it. Humanity's grand progress was entirely dependent on finding and killing enough giant sea mammals to grease its new gears. Common lard oil froze at 1 degree Celsius. Whale oil, however, remained liquid down to -2. $15 million gallons. That's the staggering annual output of whale oil at the Industrial Revolution's peak. Imagine all that fuel pouring into the veins of progress. Unlike other animal fats or early crude oils, whale oil possessed a set of remarkable properties that made it truly indispensable. First, its light. It burned with a bright, smokeless, white flame, utterly unlike the flickering, sooty orange of tallow. Imagine living your whole life by campfire, then someone flips on a modern stadium light. That was the upgrade. A new argand lamp using whale oil produced the light of 12 candles while only consuming the fuel of 5. That's not just brighter, it's more efficient. Second, its thinness. It flowed like water into the smallest moving parts where thicker, viscous lard would never reach. Trying to run a sewing machine on beef tallow is like trying to cool a laptop with peanut butter. Catastrophic. Third, its purity. Whale oil lubricated and burned without leaving the gummy, carbonized residue that choked other machines to death. Refined Bomacetti oil from the sperm whale's head contained less than 1% of solidifying fats, an unparalleled natural purity. One scientist in 1862 wrote, "It is a substance of such perfection it feels less a product of biology than alchemy." The clicking keys of the first typewriters and the whirring bobbins of Singer sewing machines all moved on whale oil. Oil from a whale killed off the coast of Japan would light street lamps in London and lubricate looms in Lowell, Massachusetts. At its absolute peak, the global whaling industry produced a staggering 15 million gallons of oil in a single year. The oil's versatility was also staggering. 500 grams of black powder detonating inside a blue whale, that's the payload. This beast itself is longer than a Boeing 737. By 1870, things changed drastically, and not for the better. The same cleverness driving factories inland now came for the ocean, turning whale hunting into a factory process. Suddenly, the sea's giants were just targets. Their speed, once their best protection, now met steam-powered hunter-killers, reaching 14 knots, matching the whale's own frantic pace. It felt like pitting a knight against a tank. The old chase was over. This was pest control with a timer. The real terror was on the bow. Sven Fofoin's harpoon gun. This wasn't just a sharp point. It was a cannon-fired projectile designed for obliteration. Its explosive tip, with that 500 grams of gunpowder, was a literal time bomb. Once embedded, it detonated deep inside, creating a brutal internal shockwave. The result was devastating. 3 lethal innovations came together: a gunpowder charge, a grenade head, and backward-facing barbs. If it hit, there was absolutely no escape. Foyn tested his monstrous invention off Norway's Finnmark coast, turning the sea crimson. A steam winch and an air hose finished the gruesome setup, inflating the carcass to keep it afloat. Try to picture being targeted by a 19th century guided missile that then exploded. This weapon had a 50-meter effective range, making any old rowing approach pure suicidal folly. By 1878, one observer declared it the most dreadful weapon ever contrived by man. Tragically, he was right. This technology paved the way for the final, horrifying step: floating abattoirs, vast factory ships that processed whales entirely at sea. Imagine this. Blue whale populations dropped 99%, from over 300,000 down to just 3,000 by the mid-20th century, turning them into ocean ghosts. Suddenly, the seas were vast, churning hunting grounds, thanks to steam catchers and explosive harpoons pioneered by figures like Sven Foyn. These majestic creatures, once untouchable in their icy realms, were now tragically vulnerable. Fleets of floating metal cities, whaling ships, fanned out across every ocean from the Arctic to the Antarctic. Over 40 Zeeusan people worked annually in this industry. That's more than lived in entire countries back then. And for what? A single blue whale could yield 50 bathtubs of oil. It felt like a biological impossibility, a literal ocean of energy. Remote outposts like Gridficken in South Georgia transformed into industrial processing centers, churning blubber into liquid gold. Giant flensing decks, over 100 meters long, buzzed with activity, processing multiple whales at once, while massive steam digesters worked tirelessly, rendering enormous piles of blubber into the oil that fueled the world's factories. We were consuming our future at an astonishing pace. This wasn't just hunting. It was industrial-scale annihilation, turning Earth's largest living creatures into fuel for our progress. How does a species go from ruling the seas to near extinction in less than a century? It's a question etched in oil and regret. The Southern Ocean, once a serene sanctuary, became a crimson-stained abattoir, its waters a grim testament to our relentless appetite. These whales, traveling over 10 kilometers annually, a journey comparable to traversing continents by foot, were systematically hunted down. Their epic migrations became death marches, their ancestral routes turning into highways of despair. In the 1930-31 season alone, an estimated 29,000 blue whales were lost. Imagine emptying a small city every year. The first decades of the 20th century saw industrial whaling reach its brutal peak, an era of unprecedented slaughter. These vast feeding grounds in the Southern Ocean became a death trap for migrating giants. Consider this: an average of 160 blue whales were processed daily. That's like losing your entire hometown, over and over, for months on end. The whale oil produced in that single peak season would have filled over 10,000 Olympic swimming pools. That blubber, up to 30 centimeters thick, was more than 2 large pizzas stacked high, perfectly optimizing it for extraction. Industrial technology, from steam winches to powered flensing knives, enabled the rapid dismemberment of colossal carcasses. Leviathans were turned into industrial feedstock, with each whale yielding over 4 primary products. A horrifying echo of modern resource extraction, but with living beings. Scientists today look back, genuinely wondering how the species even survived such immense pressures. By the mid-1960s, a catastrophic 95% of Southern Ocean blue whales had vanished, a loss rate worse than the deadliest human conflicts. The sheer volume of blood and blubber processed also devastated pristine Antarctic ecosystems. The annual oil yield hit an astonishing 600,000 metric tons in the 1930s, enough to fuel every car on Earth for 3 months straight. This wasn't hunting. It was industrial extraction, draining a living oil reserve with monstrous machines. This unchecked pursuit of blubber oil created a global crisis, pushing the largest animal ever to exist to the brink. "97% of blue whales disappeared at their peak, a population plunge from over 300,000 to just a few thousand. The ocean highways, once packed with these leviathans, became ghost roads. The removal of such enormous predators dramatically altered marine food webs, a biological domino effect nobody predicted. Blue whales can eat up to 4 tons of krill daily. For scale, that's like a human scarfing down 500 pounds of shrimp cocktail every single day. Creepy, right? Once teeming with life, the vast Southern Ocean began to echo a chilling silence. Researchers poring over historical whaling logs sometimes question if humanity truly grasped the scale of the destruction. These were ancient mariners, many individuals having swum the oceans for 80 to 90 years. Imagine a forest suddenly losing all its largest trees. The cascading impact on the entire ecosystem would be equally devastating. The Antarctic Convergence Zone, a vital feeding ground, suffered the most intense exploitation. Over 200,000 blue whales were taken, with annual catch limits often ignored. A blue whale's blowhole expels air at over 300 miles per hour, a force stronger than a drag racer at full throttle. Today, the global population is around 10,000 to 25,000, a slow recovery from the very brink. In 1870, the USA burned through 12 million gallons of whale oil each year, enough to fill 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools. This stuff wasn't just for lamps. It was the unseen engine of the Industrial Revolution. Factory machines, groaning under the immense pressure of new technology, literally ran on whale oil. Its slickness kept colossal textile looms and spinning frames churning 24/7, preventing costly breakdowns. Unlike other animal fats, it stayed stable, refusing to gum up the works. Think trying to run your car on cooking oil. That's the kind of crucial stability whale oil offered industrial output. And the voyages to procure it? Brutal 2 to 4 year treks across the globe, feeding a massive supply chain. Then by the 1850s, British factories were producing over 1,000 tons of whale oil soap annually. Seriously, your ancestors might have bathed in rendered leviathan. Even stranger, they chemically refined it into margarine. Yes, your great-great-grandma's butter substitute was likely whale. Imagine toast across a continent relying on liquid fuel from the deepest ocean. That's the absurd reality of whale oil margarine. A single blue whale yielded up to 100 barrels of this liquid gold, making their slaughter a grim, labor-intensive business. By 1870, vast swathes of the ocean had become industrial resource zones, emptied of their largest inhabitants, the secret lubricant, the fatty heart of our modern world's birth. "1,500 adult blue whales to fuel London's gas lights every single year. That's a lot of giants just to keep the dark at bay." While factories hummed and city streets gleamed, hardly anyone stopped to think about the real price of this massive industrial leap forward. News reports from the time show people absolutely cheering this progress, with hardly anyone questioning where all this energy came from, completely blind to the ecological mess brewing beneath. Whalers were celebrated as heroes, literally providing the power for national wealth, even as whale populations plummeted, a dark twist of fate. By the 1840s, scientists were already publishing reports about declining whale numbers, yet action was delayed for more than 120 years. That's 2 entire lifetimes. The clean, bright glow of gas lights in city squares seemed to have no connection to the violent butchery of these immense creatures in far-off, frozen seas. The sheer scale of demand was astonishing. More than 100,000 streetlights lit up major western cities, all needing a constant supply of whale oil. By 1870, whale oil made up over 20% of the ingredients in commercial soaps, a daily necessity for more than 50 million people worldwide. Newspapers back then often praised the triumph of industry and the advancement of civilization, never mentioning the true cost of where it all came from. It's almost creepy to think about our modern world cheering the mass slaughter of an animal to power our internet, just like they celebrated this destruction. The global whale oil market exploded, reaching nearly £10 million sterling annually by the 1850s, a fortune driving an insatiable hunt. In 1870, the whale oil market had effectively vanished, plummeting from dominance to just 10%. This seismic shift began with Edwin Drake's 1859 discovery of petroleum in Titusville, Pennsylvania, a moment that truly kicked off a new global energy era. Petroleum provided a cheaper fuel, yes, but it also offered superior consistency and a much higher energy yield, utterly outclassing those ocean giants. Suddenly, kerosene, refined from this black liquid, burned brighter and cleaner than the finest whale oil. Imagine your lamps suddenly doubling their light for half the cost, and the price just cratered. By 1870, kerosene cost a mere 25 cents a gallon, systematically dismantling the whale oil industry. It wasn't just lighting, either. Industrial machinery, ravenous for power, quickly adopted petroleum-derived lubricants. These were about 40% cheaper and far more stable than old animal fat oils. Nature threw in a few other curveballs simultaneously. Scientists developed paraffin, coal gas, and natural gas, all domestic energy sources that bypassed those dangerous, globe-trotting hunting expeditions. This massive energy transformation fundamentally reshaped global industry, enabling unprecedented scale and efficiency, literally powering the entire Second Industrial Revolution. The once mighty whaling industry saw profits drop by over 70% between 1860 and 1880. Hundreds of whaling ships were reduced to rusting hulks, their crews obsolete, monuments to an era whose living fuel had been entirely replaced. Humanity's relentless pursuit of efficiency achieved what simple empathy never could. Petroleum was a staggering 80% cheaper per barrel, inadvertently saving species through pure economics. Still, a small demand for Valine lingered into the early 20th century, a faint echo from a brutal past. "30,000 blue whales slaughtered in a single season." The International Whaling Commission, formed in 1946, was supposed to stop this, but for decades its pronouncements were about as effective as a damp tissue against a hurricane. This magnificent creature, once numbering in the hundreds of thousands, plummeted to less than 1% of its original population. It was a scar on the ocean's soul, an ecological vacuum that took ages to even begin healing. In 1966, a global moratorium finally slammed the brakes on blue whale hunting, but only after their numbers were already critically low. This halt allowed a tiny remnant population to slowly, agonizingly rebuild. Consider the noise. Industrial whaling ships disrupted whale communication across thousands of miles, like a citywide blackout for sound. Each blue whale yielded about 50 barrels of oil. Multiply that by 30,000 whales a season, and you get an absurd scale of natural resource extraction. It was like emptying the ocean's largest storage tanks of liquid energy, then demanding a species just respawn instantly. Scientists now study pre-whaling earwax plugs, grim archives of ocean chemistry and stress, to reconstruct centuries of change. The removal of so many whales caused a massive surplus of krill, like removing all the fridges from a city, altering 70% of the Antarctic food web for decades. Your heart beats roughly 100,000 times a day. A blue whale's beats only 2 to 10 times a minute, conserving its immense energy. This tragedy, this colossal decimation, finally forced a global reckoning, a chilling awareness of our technological capacity for destruction. It became a rallying cry for environmental movements in the 1970s. Humanity learned, agonizingly slowly, that some resources, once gone, cannot simply be replaced. The blue whale, once brought to the brink, now numbers just 10 to 12% of its historical population, a surprisingly hopeful sign. After decades of protection, these giants offer a powerful testament to the ocean's resilience, their long migrations of up to 8,000 miles annually, reweaving the very fabric of marine life. Think about that, swimming the distance from New York to Tokyo and back every single year. And their songs? A staggering 188 decibels, actually louder than a jet engine at takeoff. Your favorite rock concert is practically a whisper next to that. This comeback isn't just nature doing its thing. It's the direct consequence of us finally cleaning up our act and putting in the effort. But progress, as we know, rarely travels in a straight line. Blue whales still face the constant threat of ship strikes, the terrifying struggle of entangling fishing nets, and the growing pressure of climate change. The slow return of these magnificent creatures underscores a crucial point. Real progress requires balance and a profound respect for life that extends far beyond our immediate needs. These aren't just animals. They're colossal, swimming reminders of past mistakes and future responsibilities. Scientists estimate these ocean titans might need more than 2 centuries to truly recover their numbers. Blue whales, living up to 90 years, are slow breeders, typically birthing 1 calf every 2 to 3 years. Seriously, talk about taking your sweet time. And get this, these gentle giants are actually massive carbon sinks, storing thousands of tons of CO2 over their lifetimes. Their enormous lungs, holding up to 5,000 liters of air, could inflate roughly 50 birthday balloons. Creepy, isn't it?